Ez az idilli finn erdőség csak látszólag békés. Valójában ez az új ütközőzónája Oroszországnak és a NATO-nak. Miután Finnország csatlakozott a katonai szervezethez, 1300 kilométeres határával, ami itt húzódik mögöttem, megduplázta a NATO és Oroszország közös határszakaszát. Azért jöttem el Finnországba, hogy megtudjam, hogyan változtatta meg az itteni életet a NATO csatlakozás, amit Oroszország személyes támadásnak vett. Ezek mögöttem itt amerikai Bradley tankok, és ez az első alkalom, hogy amerikai erők közös hadgyakorlatot tartanak finn katonai erőkkel. A hadgyakorlat nem titkolt célja, hogy megmutassák a NATO erők felkészültségét az orosz fenyegetettség árnyékában.
So the US troops are flanking on the right side, and the Finnish main body of the defense is on along that hillside to the left. There is real mines on there, and then the OC tells the system that, okay, put the mines here, and then the system does the rest of the work. And the simulator on the tank, you see those black boxes, they are part of the system.
Yes.
It tells from their hearing that, well, immobile, minefield, immobilize.
Az aknák ellen azonban nem csak az óvatosság segíthet, hanem például ez a lótücsökre emlékeztető tankszerűség is. De mielőtt elmerülnénk a részletekben, nézzük meg, merre járunk.
We are here in the southeastern part of Finland. So we have the Gulf of Finland here. The border with Russia is here. So it's a big exercise. 7,000 people from different locations, international, so allies from the United States are participating, which of course brings us there kind of the first time that we are here rehearsing and training interoperability aspects of warfighting.
We deployed from Fort Cavazos, Texas, for a rotation. This particular unit is part of, they are currently located in Lithuania, but then we exercised the mobility to bring them up here to Finland at the invitation of our hosts to participate. Then they'll go back for the rest of our rotation to Lithuania. There's an opportunity to train with the Finland Defense Forces, increase interoperability, learn better ways, new ways to work together.
A hadgyakorlat helyszínén járva egyértelműnek tűnt, hogy az amerikaiaknak van mit tanulniuk. A finn vidék ugyanis nem tűnt könnyű terepnek. A tagolt, erdős terep kihívásait jelezte, hogy számos nem tipikusan háborús eszköz is rohangászott a terepen.
We are of course well familiar with the conditions and terrain here. So we have lots of dense forest, lots of lakes, marshlands, small mountains, and they are a specific terrain for military mobility.
It is a special kind of area which channels movement. It gives you protection also from intelligence and ISR, surveillance and reconnaissance assets. So it's something that you need to train in order to use heavy formations here.
The forests, the lakes, marshy terrain, all a challenge for an armored brigade combat team to operate in, but also an advantage for the cover it provides and the opportunity.
Finland is an Arctic country. Our soldiers are well used to work in those conditions. All of our technologies and our weapon systems are designed to function in extreme temperatures. So basically our whole defense force is designed for Arctic and Northern European conditions.
This is a challenging terrain, but it's doable, and actually it's going to be really challenging if anybody makes an adversary out of us.
We are very dependent on roads in the end, but the key is to know when you can be outside of the roads as well, which terrain holds a 60-ton vehicle. When in a dense terrain like this one, infantry and tanks has to cooperate. It's a Leopard 2A6 German-made tank. Earlier model they were given, the Ukrainians. This is a later model. It can go in forward about 65 kilometers per hour, so it's really fast, and the main gun is stabilized, so you can shoot accurately even on the move. Foreman crew, driver, loader, gunner, and leader.
Lieutenant?
Yes.
Excellent. Did you go through the academy? You're going to make a career of this?
I'm already making a career of this.
Making a career of it? Excellent.
A finn haderő azonban nem a hivatásos katonákra alapul.
You guys, so your conscription ends in a couple weeks?
Yep. Yes.
Going to school, or what are you doing next?
Probably.
Probably school. You sure you don't want to stick around and be a gunner?
Well, that's for a war.
We are one of the few European countries who have still general conscription. Most of Finnish males and many voluntary females serve in the military and become part of the reserves.
És hogy kell elképzelni a finn hadsereg sorköteles katonáit?
I'm a reservist, so officer in reserve, so I'm not in active duty. I have my civilian life. I'm a head of marketing in a software company.
I'm an associate professor at the university, thermal engineering. So quite different than this activity.
How does it fit to your life?
Quite well. We have been trained when we were quite young, and then if you have a certain position in the army corps, then you will be called quite often to these exercises, and you basically have been prepared to these, and it won't interrupt your personal life that much.
When I received the order, I obviously wanted to do this because for my country and you know, do a good thing.
We have in Finland roughly 900,000 Finns who have received military training. Out of those, we plan to mobilize in wartime maximum 280,000. For them we have a wartime task and all the equipment they need.
De miért volt szükség ennyi katonára akkor, amikor az ukrán háború még a látóhatáron sem volt?
In order to understand the Finnish-Russia relationship, I think it's good to understand that Finland is a very small state, whereas Russia is, of course, the giant next door. For a small state, national security always comes first. You try not to poke or provoke the big neighbor, but on the other hand, you have to prepare for the worst.
Russia has always been the only major security concern for Finland, and we have a difficult history with Russia. We have fought in the Second World War.
We never gave up our national defense forces. We still have and have always had a general conscription, and that is very popular.
It's well understood here that defense is the basis and cornerstone of our society. If defense fails, you don't have anything else. You don't have freedom, you don't have democracy, you don't have business life, everything is gone.
De aztán azt is megtudtam, hogyan fordult az önvédelem és a semlegesség a NATO csatlakozásba.
Before last year, most Finns think that we can work with Russia as two neighboring countries, and we can trust each others and have a meaningful bilateral relationship, but that changed after Russia launched the large-scale attack to Ukraine, and it became very difficult for Finnish people to trust that we can have a meaningful bilateral working relationship with that kind of regime in Moscow who attacks its neighbors.
I would do this, and I have done this before the Russian aggression began. Now that the situation is what it is, this feels even more important.
Russia can really blame itself for the fact that Finland decided to apply for NATO membership. We saw that Russia can no longer be trusted, and we cannot manage the relationship on our own anymore.
If you, for example, look at the support for applying to NATO membership in Finland, that was very constant, low level until Russia's attack last year.
I'm prepared to protect my homeland if Russia attacks us, but I think they will not now that we're part of NATO.
I don't think they were going to before you guys joined NATO.
We are tough.
Pretty damn good army.
The key in joining NATO is to become part of the collective defense and NATO's Article 5, which means that lifts the deterrent effect of our defense to a totally new level.
Came here to reassure allies and bolster the defense on the eastern flank. Whatever Russia chooses to do in the future is their choice, but our mission here is to take Article 5 seriously and deter any future threat.
The important function that we do have to prevent a war from arising, and if it does, to be prepared and fight any invader, however it might be operating.
A harci készültség fenntartásához azonban nem csak fegyverekre van szükség. Ezt a hadgyakorlatot meglehetősen életszerűre tervezték, mert a katonákkal együtt ebédelünk paprikás krumplit. Egész finom. Közben folyamatosan remeg a föld, mert itt húznak el a hátam mögött a tankok. És most már a határon vagyok, az ott Oroszország, ez pedig az a kerítés, ami jelzi a NATO csatlakozással és a háborúval egyre fagyosabbá váló finn-orosz viszonyokat. A finn hatóságok úgy ítélték meg, hogy ez egy kiemelten veszélyes terület, ahol az oroszok olyasmire készülhetnek, amit a belorusz-lengyel határon már megtapasztalhattunk, ahova a belorusz hatóságok tömegével szállították a közel-keleti menekülteket azért, hogy azok átáramolva konfliktusokat okozzanak Lengyelországban.
We saw this happening recently in Poland's and Lithuania's borders to Belarus, and the lesson learned was that if you have lots of open space and forest in your borders, it's very difficult for your authorities to control the movements of people. So the clear lesson learned from there was that if you have a fence, it helps you to direct the movements of people, and you can do it in a controlled way.
We have a border for 1,300 kilometers, and the fence part will be approximately 200 kilometers. This place where we constructed now, it comes from our risk analysis, and because in the southeast we have the biggest traffic from the Russian border, so that's also the high-level risk area. We have the seismic sensors, but the cameras are basically the best detection capability that we will have. And now that we get the road, the reaction time for our patrols is much less than before.
Az éberség érthető volt, ha azt vesszük, hogy a határ túloldalán szabad szemmel is látni lehetett orosz katonákat.
If you look closer to that side, you can see two guys on the bridge. It's after the border.
A határzóna azonban még ezzel a két egyenruhással is pezsgőbb volt, mint a hivatalos határátkelő.
Our border traffic is of course low level. Last year, before the Finnish government decision to prevent all those Russian tourist trips, we had altogether 14,000 border crossing per day. Now we have 3,000 to 4,000 per day.
A határforgalom leállása látványos jeleket hagyott a környéken. A finn-orosz határzóna most teljesen kihalt, ami különösen feltűnő a hatalmas létesítményeket látva. A határzóna 2x4 sávja teljesen üres, az orosz bevásárlókra szakosodott áruház pedig be is zárt, csak az orosz feliratok jelzik az egykori célközönséget. A tulajdonosok már nem is nagyon bíznak abban, hogy valaha kinyithatnak.
In Southern Karelia, Russian tourism expanded about 1 million euros per day. It's a huge amount. They valued our quality of food and wide assortment also, and they came also to spend some holidays, rented a cottage. Nowadays it's almost like zero, so it is a big change, of course.
We've been practicing and training for a big war for decades, and what happened in Ukraine has not changed the way that we prepare for fights. We have seen several things and we have learned several lessons from the war in Ukraine, that most of the things that we have been doing have been right ones.
Nézze meg filmünk következő részét, amiben azt mutatjuk meg, hogyan reagál az átlag finn polgár az orosz fenyegetésre.